stand for the pledge? Or sit for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I guess let me just mute this. Hang on. There I am. I guess for the roll, we'll just call it. I know Eric is here, Jerry's here, Mark's here from the planning board, Jean, myself, and Mike. The only one missing is Carrie. So I welcome everyone to this workshop for the Eagle Bay. And basically, the whole idea behind this meeting was just to give the planning board a quick update and refresh us of where we are with the application since it's been over. Oh, we got to put someone on mute. Since it's been a while since we've met as a group, we've had Zoom meetings, we've had new members. So what we wanted to do was figure out a way to get the board up to speed of where we are with the application. So after talking with Dave and some of the staff, that we decided that probably the best thing to do would be this workshop where the applicant could just bring to us some of the some of the process of where they are in the application with the different landscape, the lighting. And tonight, what we're going to do is probably just limit this one to 2 hours. And then what will happen is during that presentation from the applicant, if the planning board members have questions, we can either talk about it or we can get questions to the applicant so they can answer for the next meeting. And I know tonight, Dave, I know you have a group of people that'll just give us a quick overview of where we are with the process. And it's just so that, we can refresh ourselves and bring us up to speed. So at this point, Dave, I'll turn it over and you just give us a quick overview of, who's going to speak and what's going to happen. Thanks.
Well, we have Dan Sherman here for the landscaping, which maybe you want to start with because John's not on the line yet. And then we have Mark Neris here for the building and the site signage and some of the other design for the commercial building and for the clubhouse. Maybe you want to wait for that. And then we're going to do the lighting. So maybe let Dan go first and then Mark Neris. And then if there's enough time, we'll follow up with the lighting.
All right.
That's okay with you.
Yeah, that's good. And just to give everyone a quick update of the public too, that not only has this application been before the planning board, it's also been before the architectural review board, and they've had it for a while, and they've done a lot of work going over a lot of the plans with the landscape and the architect. So this application's been before us and the architectural review board, and a lot of work has been done by them. So Dave, like you said, we'll go. I guess Dan, we'll go with you with the landscaping.
I'm sorry if I may just point out, we also have Connor on the phone to answer any questions that you might have about the in-water construction as well and the dock.
Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you. All right, Dan, I'll give it up to you.
All right. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Mary, can I share my screen because I can show the site plan and then review it quickly?
You should be able to right now.
Okay, Steve has to do that for you.
Yeah, you should be able to. I already activated it.
It's doing it, I think.
Not yet.
Is it thinking about it? That's not me. Well, anyway, I'll go to this. There it is. So here's our site plan. There has not been really any significant changes to the landscape over the last many months. There was a tweaking of some parking on the railroad side and the expansion of the pool patio on the residence center side. So I had to shift some shrubbery there, but basically it stayed the same, and it's been reviewed with the Tim Miller consultants. So let me just, I don't want to get in too much detail. I have 11 pages, but I'll just look at this one first. The entrance drive is, we've made an alley or an avenue of red maples. They can take wet roots, so that's a good choice there. Oh, just overall, as a quick jump in summary, there's 270 trees proposed, where right now there's practically nothing there. And my quantities of turf grass show 2.2 acres of grass, of lawn grass, 1.3 acres of which is public space. So it's going to be quite a rich landscape. I have 1,724 shrubs proposed, believe it or not, and ground covers and grasses and perennials and different things in the biofilters like that. So in this first area to the left of building 1, or to the south of building 1, the trees are sugar maples as full canopy trees. There's winter king hawthorns, black tupelos, and pin oaks as the trees. We've tried to keep the trees in the parking area mostly as small trees that from the buildings people will be able to see over from the upper floors and under from the lower floor, but nothing that's huge and blocking. The larger trees are more along the railroad side, on the west side. And then in parking area 2, those trees are also winter king hawthorn, which is one of my favorites. It gets these incredible, beautiful white flowers, but all winter it's got red berries that are persistent that look like ornaments on the trees, and the birds pick at them little by little. There's also pin oaks and honey locust introduced in that area. Parking area 3, it's same thing. It's honey locusts, and front of the buildings we've kept it very neat because the buildings are beautiful and kind of in a modern way. So we've kept that neat with dwarf holly horizontally. There's some red twig dogwood in front of the buildings, and Virginia sweet spire, which is a low, fluffy sort of perennial thing. So the buildings are very clean and tidy looking. In parking area 2, there are sort of, I think I'm right in saying there's still rain features. Dave will correct me if I'm wrong, but those 3 gardens in the middle have ferns in them and small trees, and surrounded by clethras and different shrubs. So the rainwater is supposed to filter through those. Along the waterfront, that's a very interesting landscape. I think besides the lawn grass, there are 4 biofilters, and they're filled with things like black-eyed Susan and again the sweet spire. And I used all native plants for that, pollinating plants, things that were relatively easy to maintain. They don't take maintenance, they just can't get overly weedy. So the maintenance on those will be just keeping invasive vines and things out of it. There's grasses and things all native that will be good for bees and birds and butterflies. So there's 4 biofilters. Then there's the other shrubbery along the waterfront. And there's some other features too. There's a lookout feature in this oval lawn, and an overlook kind of feature. There's a patio deck, a sunrise patio it's called. I think these are all current. Sunrise patio and an eagle overlook facing the historic battlefield. So without going into any more specific detail, I could answer questions about the landscape.
I think for the landscape, I think on my part we were good. I think you answered. I know we had questions down along the path, and I think you had changed those shrubberies, the ones down by the riprap.
Yeah, I forget exactly what they are now. We also introduced I think since late last summer, plugs of plants that will be in the rocks that
Right.
was specified, so that in time it will grow and look just like a waving rocky field of natural stuff, which would be good. It's all anchored into the roots will all cling inside the rocks. I'm trying to think of what the tree we ended up with around
Right.
the waterfront.
No, I know that was the one question we had.
Oh, there's sycamores.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think
American sycamores.
All right.
I have a question, Tom.
Yeah, Eric.
Dan, what's going to be the schedule of planting all the trees in the parking areas? Is that going to be done all at once, or are those going to go in as the buildings are built?
I think that's more of a project management question that I have not been involved with. I'm sure that they need to be put in when there's irrigation available or water available. So I would think that as soon as the parking areas, but I'm thinking, so it's not the definitive answer. As each building front and parking area is complete, I would say they should be planted. But maybe Dave or somebody can confirm that, or Ellie. I don't know.
I've got a question about the pin oaks. You said most of the parking area trees are going to be the pin oaks.
Those are tall trees, so those are more along the railroad side, on the westerly side.
Okay, but when they start to shed in the fall, how's that going to affect the biofilters? Because I know the pin oaks have a mighty tiny leaf on them.
Yeah.
And will that wash into the biofilters, and will that create a problem with them?
Well, I don't have any of the pin oaks in the vicinity of the biofilters. Those are along the waterfront. Those are smaller trees in there, mostly shrubs and large viburnum shrubs.
Okay.
The pin oaks, I think, are just along the drives that goes along the railroad.
Okay, but if they're dropping into the paved area, they will eventually get washed down into because the biofilters are taking in all the parking lots. Is that correct?
Yeah, but they might be caught in like rain traps and like litter traps that would be cleaned out by the maintenance.
Okay.
All the leaves and things don't wash into the rain gardens or
Yeah, I'm just because the pin oaks, like I said, it's a fine leaf.
we have that issue too with honey locusts too. And I have used honey locusts, and they have tiny leaves that can plug up drains, but they're worth it because they have a delicate shade canopy and they're a nice street tree. The honey locusts and the pin oaks, but there's a maintenance need to clean the drains.
Mark, just on that note, they will be required as part of their strip and ongoing maintenance that on a yearly basis, they have to inspect and maintain those biofilters.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Does any of the board have any other questions? And if not, if we do have questions, if you think about it later, we can always submit it. But I think the landscape, I know the ARB has taken a hard look at this for a while. And I know in the beginning, we looked at it too. And I think we had a lot of changes down, like on the walkways and where the gazebo is and some of that. So I think from
Tom, I got a question.
Go ahead, Max.
Dan, I don't know if this is your department or not, but in the EIS, you said that there was going to be a plan for restoring the wetlands at the north end of the property. I think the DEIS said something to the effect of, and I'm sure Ramya can correct me if I'm wrong, but that it would be cleared and replanted. I don't know if it's the wetlands or the wetlands buffer.
Buffer.
It's just the buffer?
Yeah, it's on the site plan. The details on the site plan, because there's a concrete slab there right now. So the intent is to rip that slab out and replant it with buffering grasses. I think we named like 3 or 4.
These are like sort of wetland.
Yes.
Grasses. Okay.
It's nothing I ever cut, so I know it's something wild.
Something that grows like 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Max, we'll check that while we do the site plan, but it's like a wetland mitigation type thing. So we'll check that
Yes.
through the rest
Exactly.
of the plan.
Okay.
Only question I have is just to, hello, Tom?
Yeah, Gene.
No, the only question I had, we're gonna follow up in what Eric said. They'll return with some sort of a time schedule for plantings. So we'll know.
Yeah. I think it's Dave, sort of like phases, right? When you do the project, there'll be phases.
Yeah, that was a good question because we don't have an answer, so we'll have to put something together. I would imagine that it'll be phased, but the first phase is going to be along the river, but we'll have to detail that. We'll have to get back to you with a solid answer on that.
All right, good.
Is there any provision in the map notes or anything to that effect about over time adjusting the planting plan, or is it kind of like this is the approved planting plan and this is what it'll be forever?
That's what your code says. Any change, we'd have to go back to the planning board. So it's replacement. If something dies, it's replaced with the same critter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there any areas that are sort of, I don't know if Mr. Herskowitz is still sort of up in the air about whether to rent or whether these will be condos, but I know in some projects they like to change things up every now and then. Are there any areas that are designated to sort of have different treatments over time? You know, maybe around the entrance, or this is it?
No, this is it.
Okay.
You know, and John Hager had asked us to come up with a maintenance schedule, so that's another thing we're doing, which includes landscaping and paving.
Okay.
Yeah, and just briefly back to that phasing, we're gonna need phasing as we're going through this, not only on the landscaping, but how they're gonna proceed, each unit as they go forward. You know, so we're gonna wanna see that too, for not only emergency access, but for landscaping and utilities and all that stuff.
Right. Understood.
All right. Does any of the board have, John, you're all, oh, there's John Hager. Any questions on this part for right now? Or are you good? John H., I see you with it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Me?
Yep.
I just got in, so actually I didn't hear most of what you guys were talking about.
We're just going.
apologize.
No, that's all right. We're just going over through. He's just giving us a brief update of the landscape plan, and then Dave said I think one of the questions was, is there going to be some kind of plan of when the plantings will be, like a phase? And I think Dave said that's something they're going to work on, and I think for the whole project. So we were just looking at the first thing right now with some of the landscaping.
Okay.
I think, can you go, Dan, can you just go back to the entrance again?
Mhm.
All right. Now that's coming all the way in, the plantings coming into the complexes on either side of the road, right? Not, there's nothing that's going to extend onto the road, right? I'm just
No,
trying
it's
to.
within about 8 feet or so, right from the curb. There's just
Okay.
a border that's planted as grass, and beyond that, it isn't part of this realm. But I've allowed for grass strips left and right of the road.
Gotcha.
Well, following up to that, I was just wondering if they're gonna have like an entrance sign and any specific landscaping around that, at that intersection, even though it's a town road. I don't know if they've thought that far for a sign to direct people to that complex, or if they're gonna have that lit or landscaped either.
I thought I saw the sign, one of the sign layouts. Am I correct, Dave? Am I correct? There was a.
You're correct, but all signage is going to be within the property, nothing outside.
There's a sign right here, the big
Yeah.
sign.
There's not going to be any sign at the intersection.
Okay, so no landscape.
We don't have any property control to do that.
Oh my God, what did I do?
That's good. All right. I think as for right now with this plan, with the way the plan is, I don't think I have any other questions. Does the board have anything on this one?
Well, could I just offer up something? Since both the applicant and our experts and the ARB and everyone's looked at the plan, changes have been made, and pending the receipt of a maintenance schedule and a phase-in of the project, would it be sensible for the board to say, pending the next round of public input, that we would look to approve this in principle as it stands now, so we could move on to perhaps the next piece? Just a suggestion from where I stand, but
All right.
I just throw it out there for consideration.
All right. So you're saying, just from like our perspective, until we get input, is like the board, from our perspective, we're okay with the landscape plan, since the ARB has already been looking at it. Our experts have looked at it, and we've had our comments over the last few years. And I know some of the things that we commented have been implemented. So I don't see a reason. You know, we could probably move to the next topic then, and then, like you said, Jer, if that looks good, and then when we get to the public comments, and then move from there.
Tom, I got one more, if that's okay.
Max, go ahead.
Dan, when you were going through these trees with Steve Lopez, did you give any consideration to periodic flooding for the lower elevations closer to the path? And one point that I raised pretty early on was that in other area esplanades that had been asphalt and frankly pavers, when flooding happens, it sort of undermines paths and sort of other things like that. Have you given any consideration to those in your design?
Yeah, I would say in fact that was Tim Miller Associates' principal input in the plan, was that we shared lists that were halophilic, light salt tolerant, and also could take drought, which is a sort of a limited list. Things that the gardens have a soil in that won't retain water; they'll filter through it. So they didn't need to be bog plants, but they needed to be able to take a little salt, light salt, and which is the halophilic, and then hydrophilic also, like they can take some water and dryness. So so this list, that's why it's the Pennisetum grasses and the sedge grasses and some shrubs that would normally be considered a little weedy, maybe like viburnums and the dogwood shrubs, things that will grow on almost anything. But they would not like rich, thick, black soil. It's not what's in this. It's more of a sandy mix of soil that will filter the rain and storm water. So that was their input. They checked over my list. He met with me here at the conference table, and I think I had about 80% I got to keep, and he suggested some of the others, which were good suggestions, and I'm using them on other biofilter projects.
What about the hardscape? Like I know
I can answer that one for you, Max.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Shay helped us with that because he was familiar with what you were discussing, and he gave us a detail. And what we have is almost like a retaining wall on the east side of our path, and it's deep into the ground, about 3 foot. So that'll hold the structural of the pavement, but the pavement also pitches back to the ponds there. So the water, if it starts to recede, will not just run down to the river like it is on other sites. It's actually going to run down into the belly of where our wetlands and plantings are, and it's going to run from the pavement esplanade. It's going to run to the west. So we're doing everything so that the water, when it recedes, does not run back to the river, but it goes through our system,
Right.
which of course is the drainage pipe.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Shay.
Yeah, and the DEC reviewed that as well. That was one of their questions on our last notice of application, that they were concerned about the undercutting, and we showed them the reinforcement detail and the percentage of energy reduction through the riprap and the plantings that it'll hit before it gets to land.
okay, great, thank you.
Hey, Shay, Tom, so the DEC has looked at that too, right? The landscaping?
Indeed, the landscaping, the wetlands area,
Okay,
and they're 100% minus final approval from one agency. So, yeah.
okay. So, all right, so good. So like Jerry was said, not only, has this board looked at it, the ARB's looked at it, the DEC, our consultants. So, yeah, Jerry, I think moving forward that, we could probably at the next meeting or whenever we get close to that and whatever input we get from the public, so we can move forward. All right, we can move on from the landscape if you want. What's next, Dave?
I would suggest Mark, he's out there with the building, and he's also there with the interior signage, because there's a lot of interior signage on this project.
All right.
Both of those went to the ARB also.
Oh, good. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. I have myself and Horace Pena with me. Horace is going to put the slides up, so I will try to give you a brief overview on where we are. And again, as has been pointed out, we had multiple meetings with the ARB and a lot of back and forth, and I think some good suggestions and modifications came out of those meetings, which we have incorporated into the architecture. So just starting right now, this is just, you want to just jump to the next slide, Horace? Quickly through this. All right, next. Next. So again, quick overview, 4 residential buildings, they're 4 stories each, a total of 268 dwelling units. A mix of 1 bedroom, 1 plus dens, 2 bedrooms and 3s. They all have a nice amenity package, lounge, fitness area essentially tied to mail rooms, business center, storage, bike storage. There is a separate residence center, a single-story building that sits in the floor plan between buildings 1 and 2, which has a club room, fitness center, a catering kitchen, lockers, leasing office, pool, concessions. And then to the far south is we lost the plan. To the far south is the commercial building. Horace?
You see it?
Yep. Sorry about that. So to the far south, we have a commercial building, 2 stories, 13,400 square feet, retail at grade, and then we have a second floor commercial lobby space with elevator lobby access, outdoor patio, and public restrooms. We'll go to the next slide, please. Again, so this is how the 4 buildings 1, 2, 3, 4 are laid out with alongside perpendicular to the river, maximizing views and views through the project. The commercial building to the south in blue, and that residence center located between buildings 1 and 2. Next slide, please. So here's an overview, sort of an aerial perspective looking north up the river. You see the commercial building off to the left, and then buildings 1, 2, 3, 4 with the small residence center in between buildings 1 and 2. Next slide. So essentially, the general concept here, which we've gone through, we took our design cues from some of the old industrial buildings that typically fronted Hudson River, and we also wanted to do something that was done in a very contemporary way. Again, Hudson River views, big windows, balconies, all critical. So the whole idea is breaking up the massing, both vertically and horizontally. So you have the buildings they step, and you get material breaks, both in vertical planes and in horizontal planes. Each building has a porte cochere drop-off entryway, and we're looking at different design elements within the buildings. There are 4 different essential railing details and different material details to break up that massing. So this is building 1, and again, so what we had presented to the ARB prior, all of the building materials have been selected and identified. And again, it's a combination of stucco and masonry veneer, and at the base we have a different kind of material, much more rustic solid. It's called Eldorado stone. At the bottom, we've got brick to break up the massing as well. Brick was a key element here too, just given the history of the region. And then we've got the aluminum glass window systems with essentially black and glazing. The balconies, a lot of it is also black. You can see it more of it in the detail. We'll show you other renderings. And white, bone white. There are louvers up on that 4th floor with tiebacks. All of the decking is a Trex decking. Color the tiki torch there to warm up those deck elements as well. Light fixtures have been selected. There are 17 as the light fixture, and painted hollow metal doors where we have service doors to the building. We have a cast in place concrete foundation wall, which does get some exposure as you get closer to the riverside. And I think we can jump to the next slide. Just to be pretty dry. So as you come in on that main entrance, so you see the corner of the Commerce building there, and then building the front facade of building 1 there, head on as you look north. There's a rendering essentially down at building, right in front of building 2, And here you can see that we've also used so again, we also got a lot of inspiration from sort of the steamboats that traveled up and down the Hudson River historically. So we've got sort of a step balcony approach for those units that face the waterfront. And so, here you can see, these rails are glass, so you maximize views of the river, and they do step back, and then even the exit stair component pops up through the top of the building again, reminiscent of those steamships, those big steam stacks coming up through the building. And you can see the community center, which is primarily a low-rise building to minimize blocking views. And now you can actually see the pool there, a single-story building, and building 1 off in the background there as well. This is the commercial building, again, 2 stories, retail on the ground floor, commercial on the second. The patio, this roadway as you travel from right to left leads down towards the waterfront, where you see the Eagle Bay Commerce signage. That's the lobby entrance. And we're also using some of the screens to also hide some of the mechanical equipment up on that roof. And again, we're using a combination of the warm brick and the bone white stucco finish and awnings to provide shade at all of the windows. I'm going to skip this slide. We'll get to that in a minute. And then we have a couple of site elements that we've been requested design. So we have some gazebos and the pergola and the observation deck looking out over the river and towards the historic site. And these are some of the components that, again, we think tie in nicely with the architecture we've developed. Again, another overview slide. So essentially, so of the 4 buildings, residential buildings 2 and 4, residential buildings 1 and 3 are somewhat simpler, but they have a different material palette. And I won't spend a lot of time because I just went through this with you, but you can essentially see there is a differentiation in brick and in some of the colors that get represented here. So there is enough diversity in materials that keep these buildings interesting. So let me just keep going through. And then this is so these are the flat elevations of the Commerce Center. And again, ephes panels are stucco and masonry veneer. Again, we're using a lot of black, gray, and white, which are pretty classic colors, which is the warm brick really contrasts nicely against that to give a nice, and the black window trim, frames, and canopies give a nice texture and warmth to that building as well. And likewise, so the residence center, again, different kind of different color brick, and again, various tones of earthy dark brick colors, the window trim, the masonry, and the stucco panels, again, all sort of tied in the same vein as the rest of the project. And then I think I can maybe go through the signage, or I can stop there and see if there are any questions related to building architecture before we go to site signage. But that's a question. What would you like? Would you like me to proceed, or should we stop there?
I'll let the board. Do you want to go? Do you have questions on the architecture? Or do you want to go through the sign? Max?
I have 2 questions for Mr. Schulman. The first was, do you have any elevations of the buildings as they face the residential areas to the west?
Yeah, I believe we do. Marcy, you have that?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the facade there. So along that facade, again, so we have the Eldorado stone down low with the stringer course, and then the stucco above. With the exception of the egress corridors that have windows, again, because you're relatively close to that train line, and the way most of these units get laid out. It's a double loaded corridor. What that means is, very typical. Everybody's familiar with it. Corridor down the center of the building, and then each flank left and right with the balconies. So there are no windows that face the train, which mitigates issues of noise primarily.
Is there any way, or have you looked at any techniques to make it a little more visually interesting? I mean, it looks kind of like it's just gray ephes. Is that like a steel panel or a foam panel?
They are ephes panels, so they are great ephes panels. Do we have any other shots? I think there's a rendering. Not sure if you have it here. Or even the other building, right? There's a different. The other buildings have. Yeah, it's just a slightly different color variation. Max, if you give us a moment, let me see if we have a rendering that shows that a little bit better on the backside. We'll take a quick look at that. It's not in this presentation. All right. I know that we have one that had a view of that from the other side. Why don't we keep moving on and we'll dig that up.
Had the ARB worked with you on that particular facade?
We had gone through that again. I think it's a narrow facade, relatively speaking, compared to the rest. And I think that, again, without having windows on that, we were trying to really keep that as simple as possible on that backside. Again, trying to break up the massing, the heavier base than the lighter panels on the top. But
okay. Well, while you're looking for that, my other question was whether or not you had made any consideration to using any of the rooftop spaces for views or recreation, patios, especially on the commercial building?
We had, so the initial, it's a great question. So the interesting thing though about this is that every single unit has a balcony. So they all have sort of their own private outdoor space and view of the river. But the fact that we have virtually a quarter mile of waterfront, all those sort of communal spaces really take place out along that riverfront esplanade. So I think, we discussed it, and it didn't really make sense to have, if you were in the city and you had to get height to get water views, it makes sense to have rooftop amenities. But here, where you're literally right on the water and you have your own balcony, and then you also have a community center that gives you a pool and a deck looking out over that. Those were really the only commercial, those are really the commercial spaces that we were actually bringing together, more people. And you're right on the river, with your own, so you have numerous locations and opportunities to gather, from a community standpoint and have those views. So that's why we opted to not put any of that up on the roof.
Okay, thank you.
I got a couple of questions, Tom. You hear me?
Go ahead, Jane.
Number one, I may go back to a landscaping question. Was being you have no windows whatsoever on the west side of the development, the complex, is there any consideration for possibly softening the look with some larger trees rather than have this almost looks like a block wall?
I
soften up the view.
I think that's a great recommendation, is to put trees on that back wall. I think it does a couple of things, right? It softens that up, and it also helps mitigate some of the noise. I'm certainly in favor of doing that.
All right, and you could you scan back to the commercial building where it's on the left? I'm just gonna. No, not that one. Not that one. To the right of that building, where that parking lot is, to the right of that. Okay, right there. No. Stop. Gotcha.
Right there.
Right behind that building. Are you planning on putting some sort of a sound buffer along that railroad track?
No. I'm not sure why
Okay, we
that's,
have it in the rendering there.
yeah, I don't, honestly, you know what? You have better eyes than I do. I have not, it's not something that we had,
Yeah, it looks like a wall back there.
it does. Dave, we don't have a fence. Is that a?
No, we don't have a fence or a wall. We
Yeah.
just have landscaping and trees.
Yeah, that was my recollection as well.
Hey, Mark, do you have a picture of the back? Like Gene said, that area coming into the parking lot. I see like you have the front of the buildings, but I don't see any, like, if you could, maybe if not this time, next time, a rendering of pulling in to the, behind those buildings, like,
Going down the driveway.
yeah, going to the left over there, correct,
Yeah,
going down that way.
Yeah, if you give us a few moments, I'm fairly certain that we have one, and we'll pick it up.
Right, and then we could see like what Gene is saying, what trees would look like going down that area.
Yeah.
A good suggestion, yeah. Thanks.
The rendering that we're looking at right now, we see a bunch of trees directly in front of that automobile. And that kind of breaks up that building somewhat, but then
Right.
you have some bigger ones to the left. I would just think that something on that side of those buildings would take away some of the, I don't know, almost like a warehouse commercial building look. Because there are people on that west side, especially up on top of that hill, that can see that. You know, up there on Jackson Drive and Lincoln Oval.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically what Dan did, he put the trees on the curb line on the west side of the driveway. There's no trees between the building and the driveway. It's only a sidewalk. It's very narrow there. But he put the trees on the other side where there's more depth. So if you're looking at, if you can see the building between the railroad grade and the grade of the building, you'd probably be looking at the top half of the top floor and half of the third floor. So the trees would not be able to get high enough if they were planted on the sidewalk adjacent to the building. And I think that's why Dan planted them on the other side of the driveway, the west side.
Yeah, Dave, I would agree because you have that elevated train track. So, you know, it's not until you're pretty high that you'd be actually looking at that. So I don't even know if the tree would help anybody because you're going to, by the time you see it, it's got to be close to the second or third floor.
Oh yeah, definitely. These trees would have to mature before they start to block the facade of that building from anybody on the east side.
Just I think like Gene said, just as long as we see, like you said, if we see a rendering, if you have the picture, maybe we get a better idea if we see it, what it looks like. Because if the trees are on the other side, just so we have an idea.
Okay.
Maybe a nice mural of a tree on the building.
Anything, I mean, I still say that part of Jackson Drive and Lincoln Oval, those people are looking down at this project. They're not looking up, they're looking down. So I know there's some opposition up there about site view from some of the people, and that's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
Good point. But I think we'll just have to play with the building facade. I think it's going to help a lot.
Yeah, if we could see it, would be good.
Okay.
All right.
We'll dig that up.
All right. Does the board have any other on this one, or you want to go to the signs? All right, we can go to the signs.
Okay.
And then if we think of anything, we can always, get you a question.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so now on the on the site signage, again, also something we've gone through with the ARB, with their review and input. Actually created a new logo for Eagle Bay on Hudson. Next slide, please. So there are many different sign types, and this is where all the signs get located and keyed back into it. But there are signs. Number one are the ground signs at the entrance. There are wayfinding signs that get you in and around the site. There is building signage there in a couple of locations. There is some educational signage that is located along the waterfront, identifying some of the key historic features of the landscape and history. And I think we'll just take in, but they're all keyed back to here if you need us to come back to show you exactly where these are located. So this is the first sign as you come in, the sort of the monument sign. This is as you just cross the property line onto the site, resident marina and pier, Eagle Bay on Hudson. So again, tying the brick, the same brick that we're using as the accent features on the main building, with light fixtures flanking that primary drive as you come in. Then we have these announcement signs. So as you come in, again, it serves as wayfinding. So, you know, it's a decent sized site, also open to the public. So identifying, you know, where residents might go. Essentially, anybody, a resident would hit those top, you know, residences, Eagle Bay Club, Leasing Center to the top. You know, the Riverport Marina and Pier down to the right gives people some sense of where to drive their car. And then for various elements on site, Leasing Center parking, additional parking, the public pier, public park, smaller little ground signs that identify where you're at. And then each of the building has a name. This one's the Claremont. They're actually named after old steamships, but these are banners that get applied to that westerly facade. And so there's the name and the address for the building. I think that's to be determined unless that's been identified yet. I'm not quite sure. But these get mounted. Back. Next slide. These are the 4 residential buildings up top there. And we actually found a steamship named Commerce, so we're calling the commercial building the Commerce Building. Fun to play off the history there. And then the buildings will also receive their name on the face of the porte cochere there as well. So these are just pin-mounted aluminum letters, 1'6" high, located on both sides of the porte cochere. And then at the club and the leasing center, we have small wall signs, acrylic lettering, you know, painted metal with the acrylic lettering. I think everything's appropriately scaled. And then where we have things like restroom, you know, public signage or utility type signage, again, depending on which building and what the background color is to get some contrast, small, you know, painted letters on, you know, the various colors, again, depending on what doors they get located on. This is the other so the Commerce building. It's not quite as large as the other buildings. It's a smaller building, 2 stories instead of 4. So it gets the same type of banner sign. And then for the individual tenants on the ground floor, whoever they might be, on the face of these canopies will put their signage. And then we have a primary sign for the building, Eagle Bay Commerce. That's the lobby entrance right there with the canopy and the number 36, which is the address. And again, just a little bit more. So that logo for scale purposes is 4 feet high. Again, it's pin mounted. The address is also pin mounted there, 36. You can see in the next slide there as well. 18-inch high letters. And then again, along the Esplanade, we have these educational signs that are, you know, approximately 2 by 2. That's, you know, 3+ feet. So you can, as you walk along the river, can stop off and see what was important on the site way back when. And I think that's it on the signage package.
I think we had questions on, you guys have questions on signs? I'm trying to think,
I can go first again, Tom, if that's okay.
Yeah, Max, I know you had questions last time on something with the signs. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 2 signs that I'm, you know, looking for, and I didn't see details here. so maybe it's in the site plan submission, is signage to direct the public coming in from Hunter. And
Oh, that's right.
And also, I think early on, since this is a gated community, and we talked about having a couple of spaces at the north end of the site for the Eagle overlook, and also some kind of signage directing the public to that portion of the esplanade.
Okay, so I think both signs would be the smaller ground signs, or if you can go down to, I think it's sign 2 or 3.
Go to the where you had the map of the sign where all the signs were going to be.
Yes,
Where was that?
yes.
There. Yeah. See, I don't see them like coming off of Hunter Place up there by between 4 and 3 up on top.
Yeah.
Is that's what you're talking about, right, Max?
Yeah, and I think we just make sure that the site plan has it, because we did change that route a little bit, so you are coming in now to the right when you come in off of Hunter Place, and crossing closer to the guard booth. And so I would imagine there should be some kind of signage just directing you to the public space in that direction. And then coming into the guard booth or wherever you have that sign that shows Riverport, which I'm not sure what Riverport means. But on that sign or wherever sign, I think you saw a sign that said residential and then guests must be announced, something like that.
Yeah. Or just go to slide 4. Yeah. Go to that one. Yep. So I think we can do one of two things. I think maybe that's an appropriate sign, and we can change this to say whatever is appropriate coming in off of Hunter there, and we can direct people left to the observation deck or right to the marina or the pier.
Is Riverport your commerce building?
No, it's not.
Or is that the riverfront? Or is that supposed to be?
It may be the riverfront. Honestly, we can, that's a simple thing to change, and maybe that's not appropriate right now. This was done a while back, so we can call it riverfront. That's probably the best, or the esplanade or something.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there was what's slide 5 say?
Those are the smaller signs that would actually define sort of right where you are. So, it's if there's less information, you're kind of stating the obvious, right? You're at the public pier or public parking, additional parking for residents. It's a welcome sign. So that might be where you would put, Eagle observation, over there, close to where the deck is. I think you just want to
come up with some verbiage that makes it clear to the public that they're able to get to that north side of the esplanade, but they have to check in at the guard booth, something like that.
Okay.
I'll leave the details, obviously, to you guys.
Okay, so we might need to, we may want to add a couple more sign locations then, and then I think we can work on the actual verbiage of those signs, so it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, good. No, I think, Max, I think you're right. The one coming off of Hunter, because when people come in, we want to make sure they know which way to go, that they just don't go straight and start wandering, at least they'll have a sense of where to go. Trying to think what else.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Gene.
I'm looking at the signs, the top 2 signs, and it says, "Welcome to Eagle Bay." It says all guests must be
announced.
Yeah.
So
how is that going to be if someone just drives in and wants to go to that restaurant or just park the car and walk? Is there going to be somebody that close to the gate?
That's over at the gatehouse. Yeah. So so if you're pulling up through the gatehouse into the the private parking area, that's where you're essentially telling people that they need to stop, be announced, and then they can proceed once they get past the gate.
Can you put up the, yeah,
In theory, I can just come in there before that, park the car, and just walk around to wherever I want to go.
Yes, you could.
Okay.
all right. Just go back to the locations, number 2 again. All right, so the guard, where would, that's down by,
3 typical right there.
oh, okay, so that's where it is. So like Gene said, people could pull in, like where number 8, number 9, number 2, just pull in there, park in there, and that's where they can go to the, like, yeah, in there. But if they go straight through to number 3, that's where they're gonna have to check in.
Yeah, correct.
But before that, they could park anywhere and no one, they don't have to check in.
That's correct. It's public parking.
That's like where that, 2, 9, and that 7, that whole area there.
Yeah, that whole front lot.
And then, like Max said, if we need an addition, if someone wants to drive over to the observation, they'd still have to go to number 3, check in and tell them they're going to the observation.
Correct. So I think, and again, that's an operational issue, and so don't hold me to this, but my gut is, if there's a bus of kids that want to go out, they're obviously not residents there, they're going to go to the observation area for something. They go there, they check in at there, and the bus pulls, they let them through, they go out to the end, or anybody for that matter. I think they just want to
go in. All right.
Keep track of vehicles in and out of there.
All right.
But you're right. You could technically park your car in the public lot and walk anywhere on the site.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
One of the signs you had said restrooms. Now I'm assuming that's the commercial building, because
Correct.
as far as I know, there's no public restrooms anywhere other than it.
That's correct. Yeah. So right there, I think it's number 8. There is where the public restroom locations located.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. Good. All right. I'm good with this, with the signs and all that for now. John, both Johns, anything?
Nothing from John. We're fine with the signs. Again, they'll make those revisions and we'll check in against the site plan.
All right. Is anyone else on the board? Mark, Eric, anything?
No, I'm okay.
All right. Eric, you good? I think Eric's good. Did I lose him?
I'm good.
Oh, there you are, sorry. All right. We're good with this layout. So thank you, Dan, Mark.
All right, you're welcome.
All right.
And in the meantime, I'm going to keep looking for those back elevations while this.
Just the view as a back, so you see what it's like pulling in. That, so we all get to see.
Yep,
all right.
You got it.
Thanks. Dave, what do you have next?
You want to go to Shay? Do you have any questions on the dock or the fishing pier or?
Yeah, I think that's when we're gonna. I know that's probably a question we have, is just to look at the dock.
So Shay, or that, and there was questions I think Max had on the breakwater update, and if you want to do that, Shay's out there.
Yep.
Oof.
Sorry. This is the current drawing set of where we're at. So to give everybody an update where we are on the environmental permits, Department of State has given us consistency for the coastal zone. Army Corps of Engineers and DEC have both declared all the permits complete, with the exception of one piece of paper, which is in process through SHPO stuff. And the gist of what they really requested centers around the presence of submerged aquatic vegetation on site. So there are going to be some restrictions for installation of docks and piers, but also there will be restrictions as to what seasons the work can be done here. It'll be limited a little bit by bald eagle season, and it'll be further limited by spawning season for sturgeon and other site items. So one of the results of the review both from National Marine Fisheries and from the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEC is that the fishing pier here, they requested to be reduced substantially. If you remember, the first iteration had 2 intermediate platforms where you could stop and rest, and then the end of the T head, and it had a shade structure on there. All of that was called out in the first round as excessive and unnecessary were the specific words, despite the fact that there are existing floating docks and marinas right at this location currently. So the current iteration is an 8-foot wide dock, same length, out to the middle with a T-head at the end. It looks it looks like a normal dock. I mean, it's timber framing, timber deck, timber and stainless steel railings. I'm going to go flip to it right here. The intent, simple framing, nautical style. It'll have nautical style, galvanized boats. These will be wood railings with cable inlay, very much a waterfront style. And the elevation of this deck is actually really high for multiple reasons. One is upland. It's pretty even with upland, but also the DEC has started to require us to keep the bottom of these piers above the mud line, and above the low water mark and high water mark a certain distance to allow for light penetration. One of the critical parts of that is this whole area is habitat and foraging for fish with submerged aquatic vegetation, so we had to be pretty cognizant of that. There's nothing that the marina is going to do to affect that, and in fact, the less the marina is operational and the fewer slips there are, the more that's going to grow. So that's a positive thing. The pier will obviously be framed all the way down. Right now, we're in the process of review with them to maintain the width of 8 foot. Up and down the Hudson River here, there's been a very big push to get that reduced to 4 foot at all locations. And it's what the governing regulation, they don't say that, but that's their standard of operation. The problem with 4 foot is it's no good for public piers. It's no good for public access, for benches, for stopping and standing on a pier where you got other people walking by. So we've provided them all the details to maintain that at 8 foot. We're waiting for their final disposition of that. The Army Corps of Engineers didn't have any objections to 8 foot. So we're just waiting on that. We've also requested a waiver from them for some of the time in the fall. Right now, the way it works with the regulations, there's 2 weeks in the year that we can actually build this pier, because all the other months of the year are restricted by bald eagles or winter flounder or stripers or sturgeon. So we've requested a waiver for them for another month on that time frame to be able to perform the work on the pier in the water. Obviously, the gondola or the shade structure was eliminated. They said that that was an unnecessary building and coverage of the water. So we'll have to think about modular type shade structures in the future that could be removed in the wintertime. And that'll be part of the programming. You can see that the pier comes off the retaining wall, as Dave described before, to prevent the erosion upland. It's got a very simple riprap slope underneath it and just a straightforward pier structure. So before I go to the wetlands or the plantings and everything, any questions on the pier?
So like you said, so the Army Corps, the DEC, they've all looked at that and gave you the recommendations of what they
Indeed, we're still fighting back a little bit. We're fighting back for the size that it is depicted on these drawings,
right?
And I think we'll be successful in that, because it, much smaller than that, it becomes what we would consider to be a non-functional public pier.
What's the length? Is it?
That's 217 feet.
17, right? Okay.
Yes, yeah, quite a substantial length out there. That's also why we don't particularly want to reduce the length, because for any accessibility purposes, if you have to stop and you need a wheelchair stopping for rest or what have you, you need space for another wheelchair next to it to pass. The normal safety stuff will be on the pier. There'll be a couple ladders. in case there's a man overboard. But there will also be interpretive signage on the offshore side of the pier that the DEC will prescribe for us. On the offshore side, to talk about sturgeon in the Hudson River as well as bald eagles. And that'll be on the railings out here for part of the mitigation for historical natural resources habitat purposes.
All right. I'm good. I guess for Max, anything on the dock, on the pier? I mean,
Other than the obvious disappointment that DEC is making you reduce it.
Yeah.
The only other thing that comes to mind is there is a signage package. I don't know if it's from the estuaries program or from another division of DEC that talks about the types of fish you can consume and the frequency.
That is the exact same signage that they're going to give us.
Okay, great, thanks.
I got a question, Tom.
One question real quick. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought initially we talked, and I think it was Bill was pushing for this, the structure of the pier was going to be concrete and not wood.
Very early in the project, we talked about concrete. The problem is, I don't believe concrete as a resilient structure for a small pier for multiple reasons. Number one, the concrete's going to be up vertical above the water. It's 9 or 10 foot above low water. So it acts as a reverse pendulum and it actually exhibits more forces, more wobbling and more movement. On a pier this narrow with the piles that we can provide, there'll actually be a lot more cracking, even if you do a precast, planked pier. The other part of it is the piers that we saw in the majority of places in the city that were concrete planked decks actually exhibited more damage than the timber decks that we saw. What this is planned to do is very simple 2x6 decking that if there's a flood and it presses up and it overtops this pier, the planking will actually pop up and relieve the flood pressure. So this is designed to be able to accommodate that.
I guess when you submit, if you're making those modifications, you probably, and as well as the DEC not allowing you to have the shade structure, I'll defer to Max, but I think we got to get something in writing probably from you or from them saying that they removed that and this is why you don't want to have the concrete, just because
they didn't make the decision for the concrete. The decision was made early on the design process from our standpoint, from an engineering standpoint.
Okay, but you never reviewed that with town representatives?
This has been, everything that's ever been submitted has been this schematic.
Okay, I'll have to check the files because I thought they went for concrete. So we just got to, if you're making these changes, I think they just need to be submitted as a town as you move forward, that's all.
To my knowledge, it's never been changed. This is, every submittal we've done has been this type of timber pier from the beginning.
As I say, I'll check the files.
But wider and with the intermediate break, right?
Correct. Yeah, that is the change. Is that the reduction in the size and the coverage.
And is that something that the town? I mean, it's interesting because this is a private pier with a public access easement, right? So does that weigh on DEC's considerations on what is and is not permitted? Or if the town went for this pier, they would get the same treatment?
We're getting the same treatment on the municipal piers up and down the Hudson River right now, especially when we're combining sturgeon spawning habitat and SAD in this location. We're getting shut out in Nyack and Piermont, as far north as Troy, with similar things like that.
And who's responsible for the maintenance of this? Like, if there's a board that pops up or anything, is it going to be the municipality or is it going to be these guys?
Us. It's the developer or the then owner.
The maintenance crew.
Okay.
All right, Gene, I know. Yeah, Gene.
I got a couple of questions. So we're getting back to this maintenance crew. There's going to be another map note or another document stating the fact that This will be maintained by the current owner and or future owners. That's number one, right? We have that in writing. We're doing that.
Yeah, I can let Steve speak to it, but yes, we've been working on that document. And that'll be a recorded document.
Because we talked about that in other areas. Amy, in fact, I believe you brought it up, that we'll have some documentation stating that if and when or how or who buys, sells, that we don't lose the rights to have everything maintained up to the standards that we require. And number two, I really think that we should get something in writing from, I lost something here. We should get something in writing from the Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, they're kind of dictating to a private developer what they can do and what they cannot do. And I don't know. I've been a little.
You've got your
You got your chat up. So
chat on there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
We get
Let me stop sharing.
we get to see you talking about us.
No, sorry about that.
That's all right.
So to answer your question, we do have the record from the Army Corps and the DEC of their notice of incomplete applications and their record of comments. So when the permits are received, we can send the record of the documents with the permit so that you've got that for your files.
We'll be able to find out that they put that in writing, that were there, they wouldn't approve that, which I find hard to believe, but, you know, I mean, it's your property, you're looking to develop it, and now they're chopping some of your legs off. But, okay.
All right.
So obviously, this is not a finished product right now when we come to the fishing pier. We got a lot of work to do.
We got to. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Max, we had questions on the breaker, correct? Just, I know.
No, I don't think we had questions. I think
We just wanted to get an update where they were on it, right?
Yeah, I think somebody in the public had submitted some pictures and raised some points, and I think we just wanted to see if there was any
update
response on those.
Yeah.
So we had followed up. We had an intermediate meeting before this. I don't know, 2 months ago now. After that question, the breakwater had been incomplete when that late winter northeaster or the early winter northeaster hit, and a couple of the segments just de-shelved. It was in temporary condition. Subsequently, Ellie's crews have finished the erection and completion of the entire breakwater. Bolted everything up, all the sister caps to create a solid system, and it's complete. We've actually notified the DEC that the work is complete, and for this season, there will be next 2 seasons. There will be some additional demolition to the north to remove some of the barge debris, but we have a functional breakwater now.
All right, good. I think maybe Dave, at this month's planning board meeting, we just give an update of where we are with that.
All right, we'll invite Jay to repeat what he just said.
Well, I think the only other point that was left was regarding a progress update on that SHPO review. If you have any update on when you can expect that to be resolved.
Amy, do you want to address that?
So I have to look back through my emails, but we submitted our response to SHPO's letter. It was about 30 days ago, and my understanding. So we should be getting something very soon from them, and we'll let you know.
Okay, great.
All right, any other?
Yeah, I got another question. So John O'Rourke, you're gonna check out that we believe that was originally a concrete pier and that there's a change?
Yeah, I'll double check. I remember in speaking with Bill, he had concerns, and I thought he was pushing for a concrete. So I'll go back and see if I can find my files and maybe talk to Dave offline and see if he remembers it or if I'm losing my mind. But I thought that was Bill's concern. I'm not really sure why he was looking for it, but I'll find out.
It wasn't, he was looking for the use of concrete deck planks, specifically Connor, are you on still?
Yeah, I'm here.
But yeah, could you just address that? Completely different. I misunderstood. He was looking for concrete deck blanks. Can you just address what the conversation was? Because then we met with them after.
Correct. So the original plan was to do just the deck planks, being concrete, and we had talked about it. Like Shay kind of mentioned that before. We saw around the city at certain extreme weather events like a Hurricane Sandy, these deck planks, they're secured just by their own weight. They're not drilled into the structure of the pier as you see in a typical deck, typical timber or synthetic deck plank. So in an event where the water level comes up high enough, these actually can be dislodged because of the added buoyancy to those planks themselves, which would then create an even larger issue for repairs, and it's also a threat to the surrounding area when these planks start to float around the surrounding.
We did get manufacturers to opine on that, correct?
Correct.
And I think this was summertime last year when we met with, Bill and the group to talk about that, which is why it was moved on to just timber.
Okay. All right, good. All right. We have any other, Jerry, you guys have any other questions with the pier, the break wall or anything like that at this moment?
I don't know.
All right.
Or the riprap.
Or the riprap, that's it. Same thing.
I was wondering on not so much the pier, but the marina, if there was any consideration as to access control there.
When the new gangway goes in, the new marina goes in, once Ellie's been able to put that down, there'll be a combination code key small gate there, much like the one they have at Mendocino, to prevent public just walking out onto those piers.
And in working with DEC, are they requiring any sort of living shoreline treatment to the riprap?
So, and I'll reshare again, we have gone through that. That was a big part of what we wanted to do and present to them, is the location of the old travel lifts. This location right here, and this location right here, the pits, as well as obviously the South Beach. We've effectively converted those into wetlands areas with the inclusion of a sill. And this is a cross section of it. And this is part of what we worked with the DEC to get these plants selected and create an intertidal area. The riprap starts on the inside of the existing timber bulkhead. We're not going offshore of that, so 100% of the work will be inboard. We come up a slight elevation and we present, a sill, which is just a shelf of granite rocks, unpointed, hand set, to create a natural spillover. And then this will be allowed to inundate, obviously with a 1 foot tide higher than normal it would intake this, to create a wetlands and an intertidal habitat here. Underneath this, there's quarry logs and geotextile biodegradable mat to allow the roots to prosper and actually grow in and root within this and allow it to be able to move up the riprap and plug everything. So there's 3 locations where that will be in those tidal, and we're calling them tidal pools. The biggest one to the south, right here, the one in the middle, and the one to the north. And then there will be around where the outfalls are, as they noted, there'll be plugs throughout the riprap. Not live staking. Live staking is a little bit different. If you know what it is, you take sapling trees, green trees, and you drive them in with the riprap. We're talking about Spartina type plugs or other salt tolerant plug and grass species to root within the riprap to further reinforce the slope.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks. All right, anyone else have any other questions on this? All right, if not, Dave, we probably have like half hour left.
Oh, nice.
What do you want to
These
wrap
are
it up
playing,
with?
concert. You know that?
Lighting?
Oh, okay, let's do the
Faculty
lighting.
concert,
Got it.
Right. So basically, when you do lighting on a project like this, you go to light companies, and the light companies have engineers, and they do the layouts for the lights. What we did was we had a list of things that we wanted to accomplish with the lights, and a lot of it had to do with height.
Right.
Most lights, like your street lights, are 30-some foot high. The shopping center lights are way up to 35-foot high. We didn't want that. We wanted to keep the poles at 20 foot. So it required more lighting. So all our poles within the site are at 20 foot with the light on top. The light that's on top is an LED light. It has 5,000, they call it cool, but it can be reduced 90% down to 10% of the original light. So it's dimmable. Each one of these lights is dimmable, and that's how we really wanted to put this site, because as you know, the site has many uses within it. It has the commercial, it has the residential, it has the public walkway. So we put that light package together, sent it to the ARB, and then Stephen Lopez looked at it, and he come up with some questions. The first thing he wanted was he didn't want any ISOs. He wanted us to eliminate the ISOs and put down the actual readings. And he went through and he looked at each one, and he come up with a memo of about 15 items. We discussed that at the ARB. We went back and we went to the light company and said, this is what our issues were. And the biggest issue that Steve had was inside the parking lots of the residential, there was hot spots, meaning the lights were very bright, but it still wasn't reaching all the way out to the sidewalks in front of the buildings. So we had a problem there. And what we did was we actually reduced the lights that were in the parking lot. And then that's when we went to the ballards along the sidewalk. So the ballards are walking, the walking lights, I'll say, for the sidewalks. And there's about 60 of them, I believe, that go in front, on both sides of the building, along the walking areas, along in front of the commercial and in front of the clubhouse. When we did that, we also had them along the Esplanade. And I think I kind of misled you on that, because I forgot we changed that. And we changed it because the Esplanade is at elevation 8, and the ballards are 3.5 foot high. So they're only up around elevation 11. So if there ever was a storm and it went over the top to 10 foot or 11 foot, the ballards would be underwater and they'd be destroyed. So we took those out along the Esplanade, and we went to a different light on a 10-foot pole. We still wanted to keep it low, and we thought 20 foot was too high, so we went to 10 foot. So the Esplanade is at elevation 8. This light would be 10 foot up. That's 18. The finished floor on the building is 14. So a person standing in the building on their deck looking out would be looking over the top of these lights. And we also requested a light that would be, I call it a mushroom. It's the light's just centered right over the pole, and it's basically a walking sidewalk light, which will cover this Esplanade. So we worked on about 3 different lights for walking in this facility itself, and that would be the ballards, this mushroom light, and a couple in the back. And then along the west side, that's more like a street lighting, because I call that the driveway, the one you were talking about, the back of the buildings that goes all the way up to the end and back out. The parking lots are centered in the parking area, and there's no highlights, 20-foot poles or any kind of pole height against the buildings. The only thing against the buildings are the ballards, which would be hidden from the landscape in the front. Then we added lights going out, street lights going out the intersection, but that does create a problem right now, and we have to get our neighbor to agree to that, because although we have a right to do it, we don't have a right to put light on somebody else's property, and that's in your code. So we need some help to establish those lights. Now, the lights we're using, they're made by RAB, and they're basically dark sky compliant, meaning they have a hard shell on the top. And then, like I said, they can be reduced 90%. They're dimmable. So they can be set, they can be timed. And these lights will last 100,000 hours, which is probably 15 to 20 years. So we took a lot of time in this, and Steve Lopez reviewed this twice, once verbally comments, and then the list I said of 15 comments. And then I think the last time he wrote the letter to the board that he accepted it as we had it. And we went to the ARB with this, and we got stopped because of the COVID. The only outstanding issue we had was the color of the lights, and there was a debate on that. So we got a color sample, and it's actually been sitting over here next to my right about a year and 2 months. So someday we'll go back to the ARB and settle up with a few things we have outstanding. And one of them would be the color of the lights, which we have is beige. And I don't know if you have any questions on the lights, but it's a pretty simple shot. It's we have the Hudson on one side, the railroad on the other, and us on the north side, and a little bit to the south with another business. So we don't have anything affecting the residents. And I think we showed you a couple of months ago how it looked in dark sky from the top and looking in from the river with the lighting. So I don't know if you have any questions, but basically the thought is here to try to save electric and cut these lights in residential at a certain hour when the community who live there would like it to be cut down. Have the security lights on around the pathways, and then the commercial would be cut down to security lighting, which is, they call it yellow. The light can be turned down so low that it actually has a yellow effect to it. So that's the lights. I don't have any questions. We'll try to get you the answers.
Dave, is there any place in the county that has similar lighting?
Yeah, all the shopping centers. The Blue Fig up there in New City went to this type of lighting. All shopping centers are going. You have it at ShopRite. ShopRite cuts their lights down after they close. It's the thing to do. Rosman Center over on 202 just put lights in. They just replaced all their lights because they can save enough electric in 1 year to pay for the lights that they did. The LED lights are the way to go. And being adjustable is just, we always look at lights and we say, oh, does it shine on this guy's property? Does it shine back or forward? Well, these lights are totally adjustable, and with the LEDs dimmable, you can cut them high intensity if you want to be a Schultz Ford parking lot, or low if you want the security of ShopRite at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. All right, good. Thanks, Dave. John, you have any questions with the lights right now?
Yeah, well, we had issued some comments. I'm looking at back in early February of this year. We sent them over to the board and to Dave. I think they're pretty straightforward. So when Dave makes the resubmit them, he'll either question my comments and give me a call or adjust them. But I do notice, I'm glad to hear they can cut down, because I know Max is a big one as well, board about the 5,000 Kelvin. So that is something we should discuss, and how we monitor and who's responsible for turning the lights down and adjusting them.
All right, good.
I'd like to just say one thing.
For that.
I'd like to just say one thing. John's comments really centered on engineering about the poles withstanding the wind force and the engineering details and a few light questions. But the light plan that we submitted did not have engineering details for footings and pole to make sure the pole would take the wind and everything. So we have some engineering to do on this plan now.
Oh, good. Max.
Did you say that you were going to be using an IDA dark sky approved product?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Every light is.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, it's not that it actually meets the dark sky friendly, because there is a very specific requirements. It's not just no shining lights, right? They have a whole thing with the color and the hue. And
It says right on the paper, it says IDA's fully shielded requirement.
Oh, that's different.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's different than dark sky.
Yeah, that's fully shielded, because as soon as you said that, if it's dark sky compliant, it's required to be 3000 K or lower. So.
Well, if it's dimmable, it could be.
Yeah, it might be. We'll take a look on that. John's doing the majority of it. I just have really color temperature and I think what you said about Steve Lopez and having the bright spots, the hot spots, trying to get rid of that, that's usually a concern, and I'll defer to him on that. But I just, that's my little campaign to try and get the blue light out of residential neighborhoods.
I believe we agree with you, and Steve wanted everything to be around 3,000.
That's great. That's where it should be, 3,000 and below, yeah.
So you're saying dark sky conformance doesn't mean actually what it means?
Well, I think the way you wrote it, I think you said it conformed with dark sky requirements for full shielding.
Yes.
And that's one aspect of a dark sky approved fixture. So there are others, and one of them is the color temperature for LEDs. So it may be that it's both.
All right, we'll check into that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
I could become a light expert in my elder age.
Yeah, that's what I became too. It's crazy, some of those regs for the dark sky. That's why I'm familiar with it. So it's tough to meet that and actually have a working light, to be honest with you.
Wow. Thanks, Dave. Does the board have any questions on with the lighting? I know you still have some things to go through with the ARB and then these new things you're going to put forward.
Right. The biggest thing that's out there, and John Hager and Max and John is the maintenance schedule and the details of that. And then during construction, when you go for the building C of O, what landscaping we're going to do, or how we're going to do the landscaping. So we're going to dig those answers up and get them to you.
All right. I guess we'll move on. I guess you got 15 minutes just to wrap it up if you want until our next meeting.
Basically, I would just say we have offset plans, which we included the traffic light on the offsite plans, which is really the water line over on 202 West Main Street. And I think we're going to pull that traffic light plan and add it to the site plan, because it's really a site plan issue. Also, we added some more notes to the plan, about 5 different notes, and I would like you to review those. They have the definition of the benches and the waste containers that we had approved, and there's also the specifics of the pavement on the Esplanade, the color, the gray. So those are the kinds of things we'll have to put in our maintenance also. And then we had the ticker items where we were talking about when do we put the traffic light up and so on and so forth. So the last 5 or 6 notes on the site plan are pretty important. And any of these other things you're talking about are going to go on the site plan as notes. I think that's the best, because it's right there. So if we fill up this first page, maybe we'll go to the second page with general notes. But I think having the details on the map is a lot easier for anybody looking up specifics 10 years from now.
All right, good. Anyone have questions yet? I'll go to Max. Max, anything? I mean, this is our first workshop, and like you said, the best.
No, I think it might help, Tom, if you just want to explain that we're going to go over more topics at the next meeting.
Yeah.
At the next 2 meetings, just so everybody's aware of it. But for tonight, I think the applicant did a really good job explaining things, and I'm looking forward to the responses.
Yeah. And I think, like Max was saying, tonight's meeting, this workshop is, we've been talking at TAC meetings with the applicant, with Dave, and we've had, like, when COVID hit, we've been in Zoom meetings, we haven't been in person. We have some new members, so not everyone had a full grasp of everything that we've been working on with the ARB. So talking with Dave, one of the ideas we came up with, and with Dave too, was to do a workshop like this where we could just get everyone up to speed to say, here we are in the plan with, with all the different plans, with the landscape, with the lighting, with the signage. Here's where we are in the process, to get you up to speed. And like Max said, we're going to have more meetings. This was just for a workshop because usually at our TAC meetings, we can only get 3 planning board members. So this is, this workshop was a way to get us all together. And then going forward, when we get at the next meeting, we'll go over some more plans. We'll probably have another workshop, and then there will be the public hearings, which will be, we'll be doing them soon. And at that point, the public will have a chance to give their input on their concerns. The only difference with the public hearing is the public can ask their questions or write their, questions, response, but they're not going to get, it's not going to be a question and answer period like it was tonight. The applicant will gather the questions and then answer them at a later date, or if he wants to at the meeting. So going forward, Steve, you have any comments going forward?
No, not at this time, Mr. Chairman. I think this first workshop went rather smoothly and it was very informative for the board and for the public.
John O'Rourke, anything?
No, I would agree with everybody else. I think it was a pretty smooth meeting, got a lot of information, and I think it brought the board up to speed, so I'm good at the moment.
John Hager, our building inspector, who's, like he said, this, we did this for him too, since, he's just got onto the position. John, anything for you right now? Oh, I must have lost him. He might be on mute.
No,
there
not
he
so
is.
specifically. Appreciate all the,
Yeah.
guys hear me?
Yep. All right, good. Yeah, no, good.
Hello?
Yeah,
appreciate
We
all
can hear you, John.
We hear you. Yeah, there it is. We hear you. Thanks, John. All right, yeah, Dave,
Okay. I'm
Dave.
glad,
Yeah,
I'm glad to
Dave.
get up to speed on this. It's very helpful.
Yeah, Dave, I want to thank you, Amy, Mr. Herskowitz, and all your professionals. I got the list here. Mr. O'Shea, Mr. Sherman, Mr. Schulman, Arias, Ramya, all of you are online. And, like you said, you gave a good brief synopsis of everything that we're working on. And people don't realize that the work that, our specialists done, like our traffic guy, our landscape guy, our lighting. And then this has also been in front of the DEC, the Army Corps. So there's a lot of people looking at this application. It's nice that, you gave us updates on that with the water, with the break and all that. So thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you, Amy. Mr. Herskowitz, and Mr. Herskowitz, thank you for having everyone available. We appreciate it, getting everyone up to speed. So, our next, hey, thank you. All right, so our regular meeting will be, the 25th?
Right.
Yeah, so we'll see you then. We'll do probably, you'll probably give us some more review, and then maybe we'll schedule another workshop.
All right, thank you.
So, does anyone else have any other questions? Any from the board? No? Or if not, I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Jerry, I need a second.
Awesome, second it.
Mark, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so I want to thank everyone, and probably the next meeting, Steve, right, will be a webinar, probably?
That's what it's looking like right now, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so just for everyone to know, and the public, our next planning board meeting, everything will be on the website. We've put, I think, the most recent plans out there on the website, so everything's available out there. The webinar will be available, and then I guess we'll see you on the 25th. Thanks, Dave, and thanks everyone.
Thanks for taking your time.
Yeah,
No,
thank you
thank
for your
you.
time.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks, Mary, for getting everything together. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mary. Bye-bye.
All right.
Have a good
Everyone
night,
have a
everybody.
You too. Good night.
Good night.